Hello and welcome to another Alteryx Weekly Challenge. This week we have challenge number 469, Many to Many Like It Hot, Part 2. So this is part of a two-part weekly challenge, and we have the video for this challenge as well, number 468. So you could go back and check that out first if you haven't done that challenge already. But for this week, we have two different data sources. So we have hot sauce data, we have sauce details, manufacturer location, etc. And then we have viscosity and flavor data. So we have a list of the different viscosity and flavor descriptions for sauce ID. So our task this week is to create a workflow that displays the highest rated sauces, meaning that any sauce with an overall rating of 5 should be included in the final output. And a couple of these other portions we have in Alteryx, so we could just jump on over to there. Okay, so here we are in Alteryx. We have our start file, and let's just zoom in and give this a run so we can take a look at the data. So this is pretty much the same thing that we were seeing before, but the main thing is that for our output file, we need the manufacturer name and location, sauce name, heat sources, average overall rating, percentage of tasters that love the sauce, average spiciness, flavor notes, and viscosity. So let's take a look at our inputs. Okay, and hot sauce data looks like we have most of the data relating to these hot sauces. And one thing that you might notice right away is that it looks like there are multiple rows per manufacturer and sauce. So you can see that Sweet Reaper shows up here a couple times, and then Scotch Bonnet and Mango, both under this manufacturer, show up a couple of times. So these looks like these records are unique by tasting ID, and that's what each of these records within this data set is relating to. That's a really important thing to know about data when you're looking at it for the first time, what each row of data means, because you might misinterpret and have things at a different level of aggregation than they're really meant to be. And let's take a look at this other one. So here we only have 58 records. It looks like it's one row per source ID with a concatenated list of the viscosity and flavor profiles. And let's look at what our output is. So we have the same thing, manufacturer and sauce name. We have the heat sources, overall rating, percent love, spiciness, location, viscosity, and flavor notes. Okay. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is to use a summarize tool. So we can see that we want the average overall rating and the average spiciness for each of these. And the other requirements tell us what to group by essentially. So let's drag that into the input anchor there. And let's just go down the list. So we have manufacturer name, add that. We need location. That's above. Let's add that. We need the sauce name. Group by that. We need the heat sources. That should be here as well. Yep, we have a concatenated list of heat sources. We need the average overall rating. So let's find our overall rating, and we're going to make that an average instead of using group by this time. Let's click there. What is next? We need the percentage of tasters that love the sauce. So let's just take another look. We can see that we have this loved field and double, but let's just take another look at what that field actually looks like to tell what we need to do as far as creating that percentage. So it looks like we just have a 1 or 0, basically true false, as to whether or not a person loved or hated that hot sauce in their tasting. So let's add all of those together to get a total number of the tasters that loved it. So let's get a sum of that. And then the other thing that we're going to need to make this percentage is the total amount of people that tasted. So for that, if we take a count distinct of the tasting ID, that should work to give us a the number of IDs or tastings for each manufacturer and sauce and location. Okay, what else do we need? We're up to this point. We need the average spiciness. Let's find spiciness, and we can just take this as an average. And lastly, we need flavor notes and viscosity, which are in a separate table, which we can join. Actually, one thing when we look at this is we can see that we have sauce ID but not sauce name. So we're going to have to add that as well to our summarize tool. Okay, so with that, we have all of the fields that we need. We went from 197 records down to 67 records, which pretty much just tells us that for each of the manufacturer, location, sauce names, and heat sources, and sauce ID, there are 67 different iterations of those categories, and then everything else that we're not grouping by is either the average or sum or count distinct of those other remaining fields. So what's the first thing that we're going to need to do now that we have these overall ratings? Let's take another look. We can see that we only want the ones that are the best. We only want the ones with an overall average overall rating of 5. So let's filter out all these other average overall ratings that are lower than 5. We can only have perfection with our hot sauces. So let's find our average overall rating and say that has to equal 5. Let's give this another run. And now we can see that we went from 197 records to 67, and now finally down to 5, which is exactly what we are going to want for our output. So we're on the right track. Drag this down a bit so that we don't have to mess with the output up there at all. So what's the next thing we need? We have the average overall ratings. We need the percentage of tasters that love the sauce. And I think the best way to do that would be with a formula tool. So we can drag that down here to our true anchor of our filter tool. And let's create a field called percent loved. And we're going to take the sum of that loved Boolean true false that we had before to get the total number of people that did love it and divide that by the count distinct tasting IDs. So the total number of people that did rate it to get our percentage here. Let's leave that as a double, and let's double check our output for the formatting. And looks like it's not percentages like a 0.75. We do want that full number, 75. So we're gonna have to multiply this by 100 to get there. So let's wrap this in parentheses and multiply it by 100. Okay, let's give that a look, see what we have going on here. See hundreds and then 175. And let's take a look at our output here, 75 and hundreds, nice. Okay, now we have the average overall rating and the percent loved. Let's get that, we have the average spiciness as well, so let's get the flavor notes and viscosity. So we're gonna drag in a join tool to join these two data sources. Just drag this here, and we're joining by sauce ID. Let's click off to update it and see why we still have a error here. So it says that double fields can only be joined to other double fields. So it looks like one of these sauce ID fields is a double and the other is not. Let's drag in two select tools just to take a look at what kind of data types these two sauce IDs are. So one is an integer and the other is a double, I assume, yes. So we have double here. Okay. So generally, when it comes to IDs aren't something that you are aggregating ever. So there's really no need for them to be numbers at all. You don't really want like the average ID of anything. IDs are just unique identifiers. So it is definitely best practice to have IDs as strings. So let's turn both of these into a string instead of trying to make them match as far as numbered data types. And now everything will come through just fine and join, so that's great. So lastly, I think we have everything together. We kind of just need to format everything and order the different columns in the way that the challenge wants us to have them. So let's take a look here, and we want it in the order of manufacturer name, sauce name, heat sources. So let's add in a select tool. I think it's kind of best practice to add in select tools after join tools when you're doing your renaming and reordering. It's just a bit easier to follow, in my opinion. Although you could do the same exact thing within the join tool. It just lets someone looking at your workflow know that things may have been changed or reordered, but you wouldn't necessarily always look to see that in a join tool. So we're starting out with manufacturer name and sauce name, and I think the third one was heat sources. So let's rename this to heat sources, and let's push that up one. Let's double check again. So manufacturer name, sauce name, heat sources. Next is overall rating and percent loved. So let's rename this back to overall rating and find our percent loved field and push that up a few. Okay, location not just yet. Okay. Next we have spiciness, location, and viscosity. Let's find spiciness. Okay. And let's bring everything down one. Rename this to spiciness. And we have location there. And now we need to find viscosity. And let's rename that. It is actually named incorrectly within the output here. It's not viscosity. So we'll leave it named as viscosity. And I think just one more, the flavor notes is the last one. Yes, lastly we have our flavor notes. Let's rename this to flavor notes and push that up. Oh, I did not grab the things I assumed I was grabbing. And then let's uncheck these other fields that we no longer need that are used to get us to this point and see what we have here. Okay, this looks good. One thing that you'll notice is that the ordering for this, it looks like it is just based off of manufacturer name ascending. Yeah, these are in alphabetical order. It doesn't look like it's sorted by spiciness at all or anything, so let's give this a sort by manufacturer name. Give this a run. And then let's check on the spiciness field since we do have these repeating decimals here and see what formatting this was in. Okay, looks like it is to 2 decimals. So let's set that and let's just change it to a fixed decimal instead of a double. Let's go with fixed decimal 19.2. So put it to 2 decimal places. Okay, that looks good. Take a look. Okay, yeah, this looks good. So that was challenge number 469. Hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you learned something, and thank you for watching.